Hi everyone, welcome to the introduction to Adobe Illustrator. Today we are going to be discussing and having an overview of how Illustrator works and the interface of Adobe Illustrator. So if you're just joining us, if you are a beginner to Adobe Illustrator, then you are safe. If you are also an expert or you're used to the interface, that's the Adobe Illustrator interface, then also you are welcome. We are going to dive into it straight up. First of all, I'm going to introduce myself, then we'll go into the interface, then we'll look at our workspace and also our toolbar. Then we'll have a design process, and I will give you a bonus effect or a bonus technique that I use for effects. So let's get straight into it. So first of all, my name is Jai Jehu. I am a graphic designer with about 4 years of experience. I did a design challenge, a 365 days challenge for my portfolio, minimalistic designs for 365 days, and I also specialize in using Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, and also InDesign. I'm more into freelancing and in-house designs. I do more social media, editorial, and brand identity design, and I'm very happy to have you guys here, and let's get straight into it. So the next thing we'll be looking at is the interface. Now, the interface of the Adobe Illustrator. Now, it's divided into different parts. We have different parts for different functions, and some parts house other functions that give birth to other functions. So the first part we are going to be looking at is the menu bar. The menu bar is found at the top of the software, which houses most of the functions, or houses all of the functions that is being found in the software, that's the Adobe Illustrator. If you like for the files holds and creating new folders or new documents, and opening previous document or recent documents, closing that document and saving it, and exporting it and importing. So it holds everything that concerns documents and files, while the edit is like a function that helps you to either you copy things or you paste them, or you can edit things within that document. So each menu has its own functions and also activities that you can perform using those menus. Now, also the next one is the option bar. Now, the option bar is the bar that actually works with the toolbar. The toolbar is where all the tools are stored, where you can perform various functions with it. You could do various tasks or various activities or various events using the tools within the toolbar, and these options pop up based on the tools that has been selected or has been highlighted. Now, I'm currently on the selection tool, and if I switch it to probably the shape builder tool, or I switch it instead to the text tool, you could see that some of the options have changed here, and you have more things that you can perform using the function or the tool that has been selected. So the option is given birth based on the tool that is being selected. Also, the next one is the toolbar. As I said, the tool basically is tools that you use to perform various tasks in the interface or within your workspace. The next one is the function or the effects bar. Now, the effects bar for me, it's found at the right hand side within this place, and this is actually customized because I'm using the Essential Classic. It has been edited already and it's using it. I will show you how to go about that. You can re-edit it to have the kind of interface that you want it to look like. So let me move to the next one, which is the workspace. Now, the workspace is found at the top right hand side, close to the minimize button, or if I'll call it minimize button. So you can edit the workspace to suit what task you are trying to perform. So I will show you the workspace in just shortly. Then also the next one is the detail panels. Now, the details panel is found at the bottom here. If you see it at the bottom here, it houses the information of the zoom in of your workspace, and also the rotation of that workspace, with also some other details that are like the tool that has been selected, like now it's selected the type tool, which is actually showing here. I can change it and select the selection tool, and it also shows here. So it shows you the tool you are using, the zooming of your workspace, and that's that like everything that you can actually work with. Now for your properties panel, which is found at the right hand side, it's also determined, sorry, by the tool that you have selected. So if you have selected like the rectangle tool pops up properties that you want to work with. Like the text tool, it shows you more properties that you can use to edit the text tool. So it works like the option tool, but it's more of the properties of either the object or the text that you're working with, the element within your workspace. This is your workspace, and it can be edited and placed in any place you want it to be. So let's get into the next part. Now, the next part is not the design process. The next part is your workspace. Now, the workspace is determined by what tasks you are trying to work on. Like me, I am just doing more of posters and social media designs with carousels on my Adobe Illustrator. But you can, maybe you're an artist and you want to venture into Adobe Illustrator, then this is where you can change the workspace to suit the task that you'll be performing. So to edit your task, you go to Windows, you go to Workspace, and you select either of the task or either of the workspace that you want to use. Now I'm using Essential Classic. Let me reset Essential Classic to make it look the way it was before. Now I've reset the Essential Classic, and you can see the tools here. Formerly it was customized by me, and I had some effects that were dropped into this part. But now these are just normal effects that are actually placed within the panel here. So we have the automation. It's used to automate a particular process. If there is a part that you usually take every single time you use the software, you can automate that part. So with just one click or two clicks, you can have the whole process being performed using the automation. Now we have the Essential and also the Essential Classic. They're actually found. If you come here, the workspace is added also, so you can be able to switch to workspace as fast as possible. Now the Essential and the Essential Classic basically provides you with the essential tools that you'll be using within the workspace. So I use the Essential Classic because I perform some tasks that are a little bit advanced than the Essential Classic, than the Essential itself. Now we have for layout, we have for painting, we have for printing and proofing if you are doing editorials, we have for tracing. If you are into drawings or stuff like that, similar to painting, you have for typography. If you are a typographer and you customize fonts yourself, you are more into font development, typography will work better for you. Then for web, which is for web designs, and Illustrator can cover a lot of areas in the graphic design niche, and it's very, very, very versatile in its work. So the next one we're moving into is the toolbar. We are going to be talking about toolbar and the tools you could get from the toolbar while working with Adobe Illustrator. Now the first tool, which is there and it's very essential, is the selection tool. It's used to select objects or elements within your workspace. You use it to select singular objects or elements, or you can select multiple objects. Now you can highlight on all of them and select all the objects within the space or within that rectangle that is being created as a selection or the highlight. So that's all for the selection tool. There's more things you could do with the selection tool, like either scaling, or we can either scale, or you can also rotate using the selection tool. So now for the direct selection tool, it's a little bit more detailed than the selection tool. And the direct selection tool is you can aim for edges or for curves to make edits to those edges or anchor points that are found on elements within your workspace. Now, if you click on this, I can edit this part just specifically without actually touching the rest of the part. So the other part stays fixed while I'm editing just one anchor point on that object or on the element. You can also do that on circles. Anchor points are created by either sharp turns or curves. So in this case, there is a curve. So the curve here, here, and here, and also here. So there's a curve that forms an ellipse or forms a circle. So you can edit it using the direct selection tool, and that's one very, very, very important tool when you are working in details. Now, the next one is the magic wand tool. The magic wand tool is used to highlight or to select specific objects within having same properties, color properties instead. You can select them at once by just going to the magic wand tool and clicking on the object that you want to select that have the same color properties. So I click here, you could see that this is selected, this one is selected, this one is also selected, and this one also with this and this. So it selects the ones with the same properties to for you to work on. So if you want to you want to change the color of all those ones that have been selected, you could come to, let me say, the eyedropper tool, or instead of the eyedropper tool, come here to your fill and you give it a color, so everything changes and you have a different color. So now we move to the next one, which is the lasso tool. It's used to select or to highlight instead, to highlight a group of objects or a group of elements within the highlighted space. So let me give you an example of how it works. I select tool, I come, I trace round, I skip this, trace this one too, and I join it back. So it selects the ones that is in contact with. So I think I had a little bit touch here on this. So it selected even the anchor point of that object. And these anchor points are not selected, just only these anchor points with the whole two objects there that have been highlighted. So that's how the lasso tool works. Now the pen tool, what I use it mostly for is to make irregular shapes. Like if I'm trying to trace an image and it's having irregular shapes or irregular points, anchor points, I create anchor points to create these shapes. Now it works very well if you are working on very geometrical shapes. Like must not be too geometrical, but probably have points and angles. The pen tool works for you very, very well. Now for the curvature tool is the pen tool with a curve. That's how I describe it, the pen tool with a curve. So if you are trying to create curves and it's going to be hard for you using the pen tool to create those curves, you could use the curvature tool. It traces it very well. Like, let me give you an example of creating a semi-circle. I click here and I click here, and very easy, I can create a semicircle without stressing myself or using the pencil. With time and practice, you begin to refine how you use these tools. Now for the text tool, it's very plain. You just add your text, and that's it about the text tool. There's nothing very confusing or tedious there. We have for the line tool. Now the line tool, just to create lines, is used to create lines, or although there are options under the line tool, like the arc tool, the spiral tool, the rectangle tool, and the polar grid tool. But the line tool is more used in your design journey. You use more of the line tool. You could change the stroke. Line tools work with strokes rather than fill. So if you are using line tool, you will be using more of strokes, except you turn them into an outline, or you expand them so they can become a shape instead of a stroke. Those shapes or those strokes are also shapes, but in Adobe Illustrator, strokes are just like lines that are running across from one point to another. So that's it about line tool. Now we have for the rectangle tool, it has options for the ellipse tool and for the polygon tool and other tools that are found under it. Once you right click on it, you can select any of the tools that you want to work with. So we move to the brush tool. Now the brush tool is just simple. If you're an artist, you will enjoy using the brush tool, and you could customize it to be either smooth or very accurate based on how you want either a curve with it, or you just want a it to appear the way you draw it. So that's how the tool works, the brush tool. You can also There is also a tool called a block brush tool, which is like the bigger or the fat version of the brush tool. I don't know if you understand what I said, but it's like the fat version, like a more thicker version of the brush tool. And it works very well with curves. Like it helps you to create perfect, very good curves, not perfect, but very good curves. Now we have for the sharper tool. Now for the sharper tool, you use it, can just trace it, and you have the shape drawn. Like if you want to draw, let's go to the sharper tool. You want to draw a triangle, could just draw it like this, and automatically it draws it for you, and it creates the object for you. You could draw a circle, rather a circle, and an ellipse. So you can use it to create shapes easily and fast, especially when you are using like pens or tracing objects or tracing gadgets instead of using your mouse as as a control. So we have the erase tool. Now the erase tool is used to erase, but doesn't just do that. It erases and also creates anchor points, like the object was created in that manner or in that. So let me show you an example so you just understand what I mean. So if I use the erase tool, I could, let me increase the size of the erase tool. This is the size. Now I clean this part. Now anchor points have been created. Let's use the direct selection tool here. The shortcut is A. Okay, now the shortcut is A. Then when you click on the anchor point, you can now edit the anchor point to create the shape that you want. So the erase tool erases the part, and the part that is remaining have an anchor point to show you that this part is what is being cut off, and now new anchor points have been created to continue where it stops. Good. So let's move into the rotation tool. Now the rotation tool is very tricky, but I actually enjoy using it most times. Once you select the object you want to work with, let's use this. No, let's use this instead. This is for an illustration. I will show you how I did that later. Okay, so now good. Let's go into the rotation tool. Now the rotation tool is you select the object you want to rotate. Let's use this one instead. You go to the rotation tool. Anchor points are automatically created on that shape or on that object, and I can decide to change the anchor point by clicking here. Then I can rotate it on that anchor point or where the point is. So everything rotates from that point as a center of gravity. So if I try to turn it, it turns from that point. Now it doesn't turn from the center, which is actually the center of gravity, but now there's a new center of gravity, so everything acts on that point when using the rotation tool, and that's very helpful for when you are trying to make a rotation at a particular point or create a duplicate of certain objects, making reference to a point very fast on that. So let's go into the next tool, which is the scale tool. We just used to scale. You can decide to scale on an anchor point. Let's say this anchor point. Where is the anchor point? Yeah, let's add the anchor point here. I can decide to scale this on that anchor point, so it scales on that point instead of the center of the object or of the element. So that's how the scale can actually work very well with anchor points or with the rotation tool. Now let's move to the next one, which is the width tool, my favorite, one of my favorite. Let me show you how you can use the width tool to your advantage or to. Okay, let's say we have a stroke and we want one side of the stroke to be bigger than the other side. Probably we'll have a design. We want to create a hair a hair like. So instead of using this, let's use a curvature tool to create a nice kind of, okay, let's say like this. Good. This is good for an hair strand. Now we can use the width tool and create, okay, this is the, you can use the width tool to create like this. You can zoom in a little. Could scale it down like this. Good. So with this you can create hairs. You could duplicate it and have desired result. Just have more hairs and just I think we moved it instead of duplicating it. Yeah. Good. You could duplicate it and you have kind of a hair. If you're an artist, you understand what I actually mean by this, and you could try different techniques with it. So that's for the width tool. We have also the free transform tool instead. Now the free transform tool, let's delete this. Let's come to this name here. You could use it to transform object or text. Same way you can do it in Photoshop. If you use Photoshop, you understand what I mean by using the free transform tool. So this works in a very good way for you, and it's fast for you to just run the stacks. Now for under it, there is something called the puppet tool that you can use. It adds points for you that you can play with it like a puppet. Let me add more points. I think these points are not enough. So you could adjust it and make it like a puppet. Let's add 1 point here. Another point here. So in this way, you could distort text or distort objects to have a desired result. So this is how the puppet tool works. Let's move very fast so that I can be able to catch up with time. We have the shape builder tool. Now the shape builder tool is used to subtract, to add, or to intercept objects or intercept elements within the space. Now let's go into, you can select all of them. Let's show you an example of it, and you can click on the shape builder tool. Now you can decide to merge, and from where you start from to where you end will determine the color of the object you are trying to merge. Like if I'm trying to merge them and I want the final output to be black, I can move from black to green and it turns all black, and they are all merged, and they're just one element now. So good. So if I want to merge them but I want them to be green, I can just select them from this part. Okay, they are supposed to be green. Not do. Oh, sorry. The fill that you're working with determines that for you. Sorry, the fill that you're working with will determine the merged tool for you, or the merge output for you. So if you're merging them and the tool, your field is green or probably maybe yellow, it will work in that manner and change it to the final output as the fill. So let's go into the next one, which is the mesh tool. Now the mesh tool is used to create anchor points on shapes. It's to create anchor points on shapes, and these anchor points that have been created on shapes are used to either create very sophisticated gradients. You could create very sophisticated gradients using the mesh tool. Let me show you how. Good. Let's say we have this. I can add anchor points, more anchor points to them. Now the reason why these anchor points that I'm adding is turning black, it's because the fill is turned to black. But in this case, if I decide to change it, I can click on that anchor point. I could come to fill. I'll come to a color that I want, and it automatically changes to a different color. Come here, I could change this to another color, and it gives you a different color. So this is like a very sophisticated way of adding or making gradients, and it works well if you can even increase the contrast of the gradient. So this is one good technique that you can use to create very unique backgrounds when designing. Also, we have the gradient tool. It's just very simple. You have an object, you just click on it and the object automatically changes. You select the object first, go gradients, and you click on the gradients, automatically adds the gradient. And then there are also more gradients that you can add. You could go to Windows, you go to gradients. Sorry, that's not the. You go to Windows, you go to gradients, and it shows you the options for gradients. You have the linear gradients, radial gradients, and the freeform gradients. Freeform gradient is a very useful. I will say it again. It's a very useful tool when you working with gradients. I will show you in a short moment how you can use the freeform gradient. Now we have the eyedropper tool. The eyedropper tool is used to select a particular color or a particular property of either text and apply it to the highlighted object or text. So let's say we do have, let me have a different font here. Let's just outfit. Good. Now, let me say I want to copy the properties of everything here. That's the color, text. Let's make this bigger. I want to copy the whole properties of this. I can highlight it, go to the eyedropper tool and click on it. Copies everything exactly, the whole properties of that text, and apply it to my highlighted text or objects. You can do that with objects, but objects only copies the color and not the shape. So it just copies the color property of the object that you're trying to copy from or imitate from. Now let's go into the blend tool. Now the blend tool is used to create multiple colors from one of the colors moving into the next color. Let me show you an example of what I'm saying. Good. Let's have these two colors separated far apart. You highlight the two of them. You could double click on this part here and make the edits that you want specified. Let me say specified steps. Let me say it's 8 and click yes. And go to object, go to blend, and you go to make. Now you see it created a multiple objects moving from one to the other. If the objects are different shapes, it will also move from the shape of that object and the property of the object to the next object, creating a blend between them. So that's how it can actually work. And you can use it to create multiple color palettes when you're working on branding or on anything that is related to design identity. Now for the spray symbol tool, it's not something you'll be using most times, except if you are trying to create unique backgrounds. You can create a symbol and you can place it into the symbol panel. Then you can create a spray. You could spray that symbol on a particular canvas or an artboard or a shape or something like that. Now we have this one. It's used for measurement. Most times I have never used it before, but it's used for measurement. While for the artboard tool, it's something I use every single time. Even when I was creating this, I had to use artboards. So you can create your own artboard, customize it, or you can allow the software create artboards for you. A lot of artboards. You could create up to 100 artboards if possible. Except it depends on your PC or your machine. So that's how it works. Now for the slice tool is used to select a particular region within your Canva or within an image. Now for the hand tool is used to just move within your workspace. We have for the zoom, you can zoom in and you can hold Alt and zoom out. The shortcut for that, it is Control plus or minus. So for plus is to zoom in and for minus is to zoom out. When a particular object is being selected, once you zoom in, it zooms on that object and neglects the other object within the workspace. So those are all the things you need to know about, or not basically all the things, but most of the important things that you need to know about your toolbar. So now let's move into the next item, which is the design process. I'm going to be showing you how you can create something simple as this, and for a design, probably to create the blur and also some of the effects that you can apply. Good. So for this tutorial, let's see how we can create this. Let's delete the whole stuff. So let's just leave the image of the girl one side, and let's delete the whole stuff like this. Good. Now we are going to be using this as a reference. Let's take this guy off too. You're going to be using this as a reference, the colors as a reference. Now the first thing we do is create a shape, a triangle or a rectangle rather, and we want to apply a gradient, this kind of gradient, to the rectangle. So good, we select it. It's already selected. We come to Windows, we come to gradient, and it shows us the gradient panel. We are going to be using freeform for this. So we select the freeform. Now it creates points for you. It creates points for you that you can use to create those gradients. Now let's see how we can work with those ones. Now all you just need to do is go to the point, the spot, you double click, and you choose the eyedropper tool. Now I'll be using the eyedropper tool to add different colors to different points. Now in this point, I want to use something a little bit dark. I choose the darker pink on that and see how I can create that stuff. So I choose for this point to, once you just click on it, you don't need to double click again to have the eyedropper tool selected. You just click on that and you also click on this. You click on here too, and let me use something a little bit lighter, and here much lighter. Good. So I have my gradient background already set. Now I'm going to have this copied. I'll keep it outside, so select that gradient pattern. Yeah, so I can now move her on top of the rectangle that has been created. Now I want to create a shadow to make it look a little bit realistic, like not too realistic, but just a little bit realistic, to add some realistic touch to it. I'll use my curvature tool for this purpose. I select the curvature tool, I click on this, and I draw a path for her. Now I change the colors to black, send it back, and adjust the position of the shadow. I drop the opacity to about, let me say, 15. Now I will add an effect to it, a blur effect, so the light shows that the light is soft and it's falling on her face. Let's go to effects, let's go to blur, let's go to Gaussian blur, and let's leave it at 20 or 15 could do. Okay, 15. Yeah, so I have this for the shadows, and it's looking nice. It's looking very nice. So now let's create those bubbles that were flying, those kind of soft bubbles that were flying. It's very easy to create those ones. All you need to do is go to shape, select ellipse tool, you expand it, and we will be applying this background to this color. Now it's black, but we can apply it. So we'll go to the eyedropper tool, we select here, and I think it's not giving us the result that we want. So let's just choose the freeform tool. Okay, let's do it manually. I think there is an issue with that. But once you copy it, it's to apply the effect already to it. But nevertheless, we are going to continue. Let's just stack here. Good. So let's work with this. Now already if you drag it on it, it's looking like it has that soft bubble touch on it, but we need to apply it to make it look very, very soft. So you go to the effects, you go to blur. Now if you can't see this here, you go to your effect, but normally working with Essential Classic will ensure that your effect is placed here. So you go to here, you go to blur, you go to Gaussian blur, and you adjust it to suit your needs. Let's leave it at 22 and you press OK. You could duplicate more of it, have more of it spreading right around to create that soft touch. And we had one here at the center. Now you can scale it up, but you'll notice that there is a border or a point where it breaks. So you could also adjust it, because when you scale it up, the Gaussian tool also tries to scale up to meet up with the blur kind of effects that you want. So we could also reduce this to about 30. It's that okay? No, we could increase it to 20, and I think that is very okay. So for this, it's okay. You can shift this a little bit here, and we could scale it down a little bit. But now we can just, all we need to do is just add our text. You come here, click there, and click happy birthday, and we can centralize it right over here. Drag it to the center, scale it down a little bit, and yeah, that's it. So this is a very simple way. You can do this within 2 minutes. It's just because I'm explaining it, I'm trying to show you the process. That's why it took me about 7 or 6 minutes. But you can do this within the space of 2 minutes, because it's like very easy to just jump in and just do a little bit of touching there, here and there. So thank you all for watching. I think today just comes to an end to the video because it's taken long, or it has taken long. I hope to see you more video tutorials in the future, and how to create unique designs using Adobe Illustrator. Thank you all for watching. Peace out.